Hello class, this is Jacqueline Bogan, and my research skills topic was available data. Available data is used particularly when you are trying to bring relevance to a situation. The author states that even if available data does not provide the core of a research project, it is often used in identifying what is known about particular situations and is commonly used as background material in the main study. It also states that available data is most commonly used in case studies to supplement other data collection techniques and often serves as background in all types of study. So within available data, we're going to talk about sampling principles, validity and reliability. But as it pertains to sampling, it says that, during this process, this is where files provide sample frames. It also states that documents are filed away and it is usually difficult to gauge its completeness. However, detective skills or your really intense research skills are needed to ensure that relevant storage areas are provided systematically within the limitation of time. As it pertains to validity and reliability, it states that there is primary data and secondary data within available data. So the first one, for primary data, this just means that these are personal reports from the participants or the events. These reports might be found in diaries, autobiographies, photos, and film, or documentation, like a documentary possibly could be considered as primary data. Another form of this, which I found very interesting because I do work in education, it says that in school, syllabus, textbooks, course notes, exams are all forms of primary data. And also, if you are working in law, but just in our everyday life, the laws and regulations and court decisions, we deal with laws and regulations every day. So it was nice to have something to kind of help me remember the foundation of available data, because I feel like sometimes when we are focusing on research topics, we get so consumed of the technical terms, but being able to connect real world situations or scenarios with this vocabulary just assists in helping me and hopefully you all retain the knowledge. As it pertains to secondary data, it just states that these are reports based on other people's accounts. So primary data solely focused on personal reports, whereas secondary data, another person, is based on someone else's reports. So these might be newsletters, bulletins, catalogs, magazines, encyclopedias, but there's also secondary reportage, and it states that this has less validity than direct observation, but interviews with eyewitnesses and participants can add to the validity of the report, which I also thought was very good, especially when conducting my research. I've been notifying the principals of my school, my team of, the additional eyes that I will need, because especially for me, this is my first time really doing an extensive research assessment, so I think that this will be extremely helpful. Within the validity and reliability, we have incomplete records, intentional incompleteness. So I thought this was extremely interesting, just because the real world connections that they use to kind of help us remember. So for incomplete records, this is just the filing and archiving of activities. And within this, the text says that filing systems are always a work of progress with backlog of papers waiting to be filed. However, misfiling and inaccuracies are common, which we've found even when doing our journal research, when we are looking over those text and that information, there are some things that these authors and writers and researchers are leaving out. And so, although it's common, that is why it is imperative to do extensive data. I skipped one. Also, within the validity and reliability of available data, you have biased data, which is essentially available data that is collected for organizational and not scientific purposes. Then we have intentional incompleteness, which was my favorite one. It says that organizational decisions are usually subject to informal censoring. Okay, so essentially what I thought about that was, they modify or prevent certain things from being discussed, but it says informal censoring. So then it goes on to say that, for example, decision makers looking to their future might only file material they think will reflect well on them and destroy anything else that's questionable, which in the research that we're doing, majority of us are wanting to bring awareness to something. All of us are. And I know in particular for me, I'm working on middle school data in regards to after school programming, and there is very little research data on after school programming. I know for me, my research topic is how does after school programming assist with daytime literacy grades. And so I'm currently here in Harlem, New York right now with the Harlem Children's Zone to just get a better understanding of after school programming, get a better understanding of nonprofits providing after school services or summertime services for scholars. And I feel like what makes our organizations, Omega CDC and the Harlem Children's Zone, so unique is because we don't leave out for lack of better terms, the raw information. That is what gravitates others to be interested in the services that we have to offer. We can go on and talk about a little bit quickly with the validity and reliability is internal criticism. And this is when this involves consideration of the meaning of data, which relates to reliability, having established that a document is genuine. But it also says that with internal criticism, what this means is whether it presents the full picture and whether the writer was given a balanced view. And again, a lot of us, we may understand what each other or our journal authors are talking about, but some of us may not. And I know some of you may not be familiar with after school programming or working with middle schoolers, so it's imperative that I present the full picture, or that we present the full picture, so that it's clear and that it gives a balanced view. We don't have, biased data. We're providing the proper documentation so that it's clear and concise. Going to content analysis, it just talks about I don't want to say different classifications, but the different points within content analysis. So we have classification, we have evaluation, but with content analysis, this usually results in the data being presented chronologically, with section headings and identifying key themes, which we've already done that within the program, but it's nice to just kind of have like a set terminology for it, so that when we are having these conversations where we're like, oh, okay, I'm already implementing these skills or this practice. So for classification, within the content analysis, it says that classification is the most basic form of content analysis, and essentially documents can be organized chronologically or into different categories. For example, personnel, student, course, and departmental records. So again, just making sure that we are providing readers with a balanced view and providing them with the full picture. It also says that with classification, you classify the data into manually exclusive categories. And then under content analysis, we also have evaluation. And evaluation takes the analysis of the documents further into essentially a new level. And along with this, it says, indeed, there is little point to research unless this occurs. Otherwise, the mass of facts will have little meaning. And along with content analysis, it also talked about the difficulty faced once evaluation starts. Your goal is to identify where description finishes and interpretation begins. So I really like content analysis because you are really breaking up the different portions of your research. It's not one long analysis and it's confusing. You need to be able to go to the abstract. You need to be able to state why you did the research. You need to be able to go to your measures. You need to be able to have your data. It all has to be clear and concise, because otherwise, say for instance, if you want to go back through a journal and you want to skim through just to get a better idea of something, you're wasting time if it's not clear and concise. So I thought that was extremely interesting. And then lastly, it was just discussing on using numerical data, which again is just another form or another point within available data. And within using numerical data, it just talks about the example of college grades and how relevance is increased, for example, with college grades, by using system data, but validity and reliability should be addressed in reports because the research relies on the accuracy of the original recording of the data. And again, you want to put your research in text form, but you also want to put it in numerical data form, because you want everyone to be able to understand. Of course, people love numbers, but if you're someone like me who I'm not necessarily familiar with, for lack of better terms, like extravagant or extensive numerical data, I need to have that text form so that I'm really able to process and understand what the data is saying. So it just says what I just said. You have to convert text to numbers by formulating ratings. And ratings essentially require you to exercise personal judgment in coding. And I know that Professor Jerry has already kind of provided us with some resources to have a better understanding of numerical data and just data in general. It says if validated expert judgment is not available from other research projects, researchers can exercise their own judgment. And this is just called face validity, when you are exercising your own judgment. And then numerical data just went on just to talk about if you do not have the time or skills for statistical analysis or just any form of data, available data, but your report should be as transparent as possible, because the lack of these resources do interfere with your validity and reliability of your research. And it says to also note that lack of testing poses a limitation to your research. So again, data is extremely critical. Available data is extremely critical because it can possibly interfere if there is the lack of it. With the reliability, the validity of your research, and essentially it can prevent other people from wanting to read the research that you are trying to bring awareness to. So again, being very intentional and ensuring that you are providing all of the proper data, and utilizing skills, challenging yourself, getting out of your comfort zone to ensure that everyone is understanding what it is that you have to offer. Even if they're not familiar with what you're providing, you want them to be interested in some way, shape, or form. Not saying that they have to go out and research on their own, but you want it to kind of be like a one-stop shop. Like if someone researches this or reviews my journal, I hope that they can take away something out of this research. And that is just the majority of available data, it just lastly goes on to say that available data can provide a check of, again, relevance in your research. And while using available data, look for ways in which it is used professionally and see if it provides an independent process. Like, it's a lot. In available data, I'm not certain if I've used available data before. This is the first time that I've recalled the term, but there have been a lot of times within our research where we didn't know that we were using certain practices until we correlated the terminology with our actions. So I hope that this was clear and concise. It was a lot, and I'm still going to review available data just because relevance is a thing, and I've found that in my research, middle school after school programming hasn't really been relevant. So I want to figure out ways to bring awareness to it and make it relevant so that other after school programs are able to work with it. All right, bye guys.